take a look at this picture of this man and tell me if you know who he is. There he is. Yes, it's Mark Drakeford. I know most of you at home couldn't pick him out of a lineup. But believe it or not, this man is the First Minister of Wales and determined at every twist and turn to show, just like Nicola Sturgeon in Scotland, that he actually is the real boss in Wales and he's tough and he's going to be very different to Boris Johnson. And so he's introduced from Boxing Day a series of restrictions because Omicron to him is deadly serious. In fact, he has said that Omicron is as serious as the Delta variant, which, Mr. Drakeford, it is not. Anyway, these are the restrictions that are coming in Wales. You must work from home or face a fine of £60. Yes, you can be fined in Wales £60 for going to the office if it's non-essential work. But you can go to the pub with a maximum of 6 people. But in the pub, you must be socially distanced, ideally by 2 metres. So if you want to talk to somebody over the course of lunch in the pub, you best take a loud hailer with you. It's a maximum of 50 people for outdoor events. And we discussed a moment ago the fact that the Welsh Grand National was run in front of 50 people, and 30 can meet in your house. All nightclubs are closed and the isolation period is 10 days. We've reduced it to 7 days in the United Kingdom. They're reducing it to 5 days in the United States of America, and I'm guessing in England we will do that fairly soon. And it just strikes me as being completely extraordinary. Yes, we know that Omicron is spreading very, very quickly indeed, but these restrictions are crazy, and that's why there's going to be a flood of people coming over the Severn Bridge, going to Bristol, and I've no doubt up in Shrewsbury and other places close to the Welsh border. Similarly, I suspect Newcastle and Manchester are going to do very, very well on New Year's Eve as people leave Scotland. Strikes me these restrictions are crackers. We did ask the Welsh Government for a response. Omicron is a fast-moving, highly infectious form of coronavirus, etc., etc., etc. Well, joining me to discuss all of this and what this might be doing to the Welsh economy is Conservative Senate member James Evans. James, has this man Drakeford completely lost the plot? Has power gone to his head?
Well, it's good evening and good to be with you, Nigel, today. But I'll be honest with you, I think the whole of the Welsh nation is completely baffled by the restrictions that Mark Drakeford has imposed. But it's not a shock, really. This is the first major senior Labour figure that come out to back Jeremy Corbyn. This just tells you all you need to know about his style of politics. It is extreme socialism. It's all about control and not giving anybody their freedoms back. This man has no idea of business. He's been in the public sector all his life. He was a university lecturer. Then he went on to be a special advisor for the then First Minister, Rhodri Morgan, to become health minister with part of the government when he became an assembly member. And every department he has touched has had major failure in it. And what Labour have done, they've promoted somebody to the top job to run the country that's got a history of failure. So it's not surprising, but it's not good for the Welsh economy. It's not good for Britain. No, and it's not good for the standing of Wales. I mean, Rhodri Morgan, you may have disagreed with Rhodri Morgan politically, you know, an old Labour man to his fingertips, but actually, as First Minister of Wales, did bring a great degree of dignity and leadership to the job. And I think all sides would agree with that. But this guy, as you say, not a great background, not a great history, and yet, is he the best that Labour have got? Well, I don't think so. I think there's some very good people in Labour, but unfortunately at the time, as you know as well as I do, when a certain faction were running the Labour Party, they were hell-bent on getting their version of Jeremy Corbyn here in Wales, and be that sort of a warning to the rest of the UK. Look, if you want to ever wonder what it would have been like under a premiership under Jeremy Corbyn, come and have a look in Wales. It's petrifying. You've got people on waiting lists, Nigel, on a serious point here, who are living off the strongest type of medication you can be prescribed just to get up in the morning. I'm being contacted by pubs and businesses right across Wales who tell me that they're struggling because they're switching off of regulations and restrictions all the time. It's bad for business, but as we say, it's not to be sort of looked at because the First Minister himself has never run a business. He doesn't understand about paying people's wages, about employing people. The man is just drunk on his own power at the moment.
And does it? Let me ask you, James. And you're a member of the Senedd, the Welsh Assembly, or Welsh Parliament, as they now call it. Does all of this raise some quite serious questions? I mean, has devolution turned into a dog's dinner?
The problem we've got now, we've had the same party running Wales for 22 years or 23 years now. Wales needs a change. When you talk about the restrictions, let's look at some of the figures which we have in Wales. 73% down in hospital admissions from this point last year. Mark Drakeford cut hospital beds in Wales this year. If he was that concerned about any COVID variants, why did he cut beds in Wales?
Wow.
That's a question which the Welsh Government won't answer.
No.
And only 2 people have tragically lost their lives this week in a hospital because of COVID-19. I'm afraid when Mark Drakeford was bringing out all his rules and restrictions, he said, we're following the science. I'm doing it to keep Wales safe. But when he recalled us no more than last week to tell us about all these new bonkers restrictions, there was no science and there's no evidence, and he still hasn't come forward with anything to prove why these measures should be brought in the first place. And
James, will you be crossing the border to celebrate New Year's Eve?
I won't be, Nigel. I'll be spending it with my family, but
I believe
I'll be spending it at home, probably with a couple of cans of factors with a few mates, because we can have 30 people in my house as long as they take a flow test. But if I want to go down the local pub, there's only 6 of us can sit there, 2 meters apart, socially distant. It's
the whole thing is mad. James Evans, thank you for joining us. But, the Welsh Government insists this is a proportionate response to the public health threat from Omicron.